The general election ballot has been set despite an attempt to block the candidacy of Tiffany Henyard, a once promising leader who is now facing the consequences of her actions. Henyard, the former mayor of Dalton, has been apprehended by authorities following an FBI raid that uncovered the full extent of her years of corruption, abuse of power, and lavish spending. Known for her self-proclaimed title as the super mayor of Dalton, Henyard's fall from grace has been swift and dramatic. She now faces 22 federal charges, including misappropriation of funds and financial concealment, after living a life of luxury on taxpayer dollars while Dalton's finances crumbled under her leadership. Henyard indulged in extravagant shopping sprees, high-end travel, and other luxuries while the town struggled with a $36 million deficit. The community that once hoped for progress was left to suffer as Henyard used public funds to support her lavish lifestyle, disregarding the severe financial strain on the town. Her excessive spending habits, including a $7,700 spree at Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair, were just one example of her misuse of taxpayer money. These personal indulgences came at the expense of Dalton's well-being, while residents, many of whom struggled to make ends meet, remained unaware that their tax dollars were being siphoned off to fund Henyard's desires or failure to prioritize Dalton's needs was apparent in how she treated the mayoral position, using it as her playground. She had police officers run errands for her, turning them into her VIP security detail. Meanwhile, her extravagant travel habits drained the town's already fragile finances, with over $122,000 in travel expenses alone. These expenses left Dalton's once healthy $5.6 million surplus completely depleted. In its place, the town was left facing an insurmountable deficit. Perhaps the most shocking of her expenditures was a $561,000 driveway project, an absurd amount that could have been spent on critical community services, but was instead directed towards maintaining Henyard's luxury image. She also employed professional hair and cosmetics teams and enjoyed taxpayer-funded motorcades, all while the town's infrastructure and services deteriorated. Resources that should have been dedicated to public services were diverted to fund Henyard's desires, leaving Dalton in financial disarray. The full extent of her corruption came to light when a former police chief blew the whistle on the gross mismanagement and flagrant disregard for the town's well-being. Henyard's reign, once seen as untouchable, quickly crumbled under the weight of her actions, leaving Dalton to pick up the pieces of his financial ruin. The town, which had once been thriving, now faces the consequences of her reckless behavior. Trust in local government has been severely damaged, and it remains uncertain whether Dalton can ever recover from the scars left by Henyard's time in office. While Henyard's arrest marks the end of her reign, the long-term impact on the town will be felt for years. As she faces the legal ramifications of her actions, Dalton's residents can only hope for justice and accountability. With Henyard now in custody, the community is left to grapple with the fallout, hoping for a chance to rebuild and restore the town's financial stability. The lessons learned from the scandal must guide the town's future, ensuring that such a catastrophic failure of leadership is never repeated. However, the latest revelations about Henyard's tenure in office have painted a deeply unsettling picture of a leader driven by self-interest, financial mismanagement, and blatant abuse of taxpayer funds. Despite having her credit card privileges revoked, Henyard proceeded to organize an extravagant $555,000 party for Dalton, which featured high-profile performers such as Whale, who was paid $30,000 for a 30-minute performance, and Jay Holiday, who received $20,000 for his set. The event also included lavish expenditures, such as $36,000 on a sound system, staff comedians, and even $6,600 on renting bouncy houses. Despite these massive costs, the event was attended by only about 70 people, sparking sharp criticism from the community. Jennifer Roberts, a resident, decried the event as a blatant misappropriation of taxpayer funds. Former trustee Val Stubbs described the gathering as nothing more than a wasteful self-promotion scheme. These actions have further fueled public outrage, especially as the town's financial situation became increasingly dire as public mistrust in Henyard deepened. The investigation into her conduct intensified. Key to the investigation was the testimony of Henyard's former ally and right-hand woman, Carmen Carlisle, who stepped forward with explosive evidence of the mayor's misconduct. For 2 years, Carlisle had witnessed firsthand the misuse of Dalton's funds and Henyard's disregard for the public's welfare. Initially silent, Carlisle became the key whistleblower, turning over a stack of receipts to federal authorities that provided crucial insight into mayor's financial mismanagement. Carlisle's testimony was a bombshell, revealing that Henyard treated the town's budget as her piggy bank. The receipts she turned over documented years of extravagant spending, including lavish shopping trips, high-end vacations, and other luxury expenses that were disguised as legitimate town business. Her actions were a stark contrast to the dire financial needs of Dalton. Where residents were struggling to maintain basic services, Henyard's response to mounting criticism has only made the growing scandal worse. Despite public outrage and federal investigations, she has shown little remorse. Many believe that her lack of accountability and refusal to acknowledge the damage she has caused will only further fuel the public's mistrust of her leadership. Her continued defiance has made it increasingly difficult for residents to believe in the integrity of their local government and has only intensified the spotlight on her questionable actions. Carlisle's whistleblowing has led to further revelations, including receipts documenting Henyard's extravagant spending habits and a clear pattern of misappropriation. These revelations have underscored Henyard's apparent disregard for Dalton's financial stability, as well as her blatant self-promotion. Former trustee Val Stubbs was quick to point out the stark contrast between Henyard's lavish spending and the town's pressing financial needs. The extravagant $555,000 party, for example, was attended by only a small group of people, raising questions about the mayor's priorities and judgment. The gap between Henyard's extravagant lifestyle and Dalton's financial struggles has become an increasingly glaring issue. Critics argue that her actions reflect a total failure in financial management, which has exacerbated the town's already fragile economy. Instead of using the town's budget to support essential services like public safety, education, and infrastructure, Henyard directed funds toward personal indulgences, leaving Dalton's residents to suffer the consequences. The community's trust in Henyard has been shattered, and the long-term effects of her leadership may take years to undo. Dalton's residents are left to wonder whether they can ever recover from the damage caused by her reckless and irresponsible actions. As federal investigators continue to scrutinize Henyard's financial dealings, the town remains on edge, hoping for justice and accountability. The road to recovery will be long, but the lessons learned from the scandal may ultimately serve as warning for future leaders to remember the trust placed in them by the public and the responsibility that comes with their positions of power despite growing criticism and the ongoing FBI investigation. Tiffany Henyard has shown no signs of backing down. Some believe her defiance will only fuel the scandal further, especially as more information about her financial misdeeds comes to light. The FBI's investigation, now bolstered by the testimony of her former ally, Carmen Carlisle, is uncovering layers of financial misconduct, leaving Dalton residents to question just how far Henyard corruption truly extends and whether the town can recover from the damage caused by her selfish leadership. Henyard's actions have drawn the full attention of federal agents who are investigating her lavish trips, excessive security detail, and questionable business dealings. Reports suggest that Henyard's charity work may have been more about self-promotion than actual community support. The FBI's involvement marks a pivotal moment in the investigation, signaling the agency's commitment to uncovering every dollar misused during Henyard's time in office. This intervention comes after years of calls for transparency and accountability, with activists like Brittany Norwood long advocating for a thorough investigation into Henyard's financial practices. As Henyard's downfall unfolds, Dalton residents are forced to confront the devastating consequences of her actions. The town, once thriving, has been rocked by scandal, and many are struggling to understand how their leader could have been so reckless with taxpayer money. Some liken the situation to a reality TV show, where Henyard presented herself as a glamorous, larger-than-life figure, while the town's financial reality crumbled beneath her. Despite overwhelming evidence and mounting public outrage, Henyard has continued to act as though nothing has changed, maintaining her image as a confident, self-assured leader. This attitude has only served to frustrate Dalton residents as they watch, helpless, as their community teeters on the brink of financial collapse. Henyard's refusal to acknowledge the crisis has fueled public frustration, with growing calls for accountability and justice. As the investigation intensifies, the contrast between Henyard's public persona and the financial catastrophe she has caused becomes increasingly surreal. In a dramatic turn, Henyard voluntarily turned herself into the FBI, sending shockwaves through Dalton. One moment, she was carrying on with her daily activities as if nothing had changed. The next, she was surrendering to federal custody. This unexpected move has left many wondering why she would suddenly abandon her opulent lifestyle. Some speculate that Henyard may be attempting to strike a deal with federal prosecutors, possibly offering to expose others involved in her alleged schemes in exchange for leniency. Regardless of her motivations, Henyard's public image has collapsed. Sources now indicate that she is unable to pay her legal expenses, which led to her lawyer dropping her case. The once flawless image of the super mayor has been shattered, and Henyard now faces the grim reality of jail life. Her rise to power, fueled by financial mismanagement and a network of influence, has screeched to a halt. Meanwhile, Dalton residents are left to cope with the lasting impact of her actions. The town is now burdened with nearly $20 million in debt, millions of dollars unaccounted for, and erosion of public trust. Henyard's tenure has fostered a toxic atmosphere in Dalton, deeply undermining the community's faith in local government. From extravagant spending sprees to allegations of sexual misconduct and intimidation, Henyard's actions have not only caused financial ruin, but sparked a crisis of confidence in Dalton's leadership. The saga of Henyard's rise and fall has become a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, personal greed, and the far-reaching consequences of governmental corruption as the investigation continues to unfold. It is clear that Dalton will bear the scars of Henyard's mismanagement for many years to come. From the outset of her administration, Henyard displayed an unsettling level of audacity and control that disturbed many residents. As the town's finances spiraled into crisis, with debt mounting and funds mysteriously disappearing, Henyard made a controversial move to pass an ordinance slashing the pay of her successor to just $25,000 a year, effectively ensuring no one could challenge her power. This move was only one example of Henyard's drive to consolidate control, further exacerbating the financial problems already plaguing Dalton. Her reckless disregard for financial prudence became increasingly apparent when it was revealed that Henyard spent an astronomical $440,000 in a single day on Amazon. This staggering purchase symbolized her wasteful handling of taxpayer money and quickly drew the attention of both federal and state authorities. In response, the Illinois State Comptroller intervened, halting vital payments to Dalton in an attempt to stop the ongoing financial hemorrhaging as the town continued to collapse under Henyard's leadership. Residents sought help from outside sources, hoping to bring an end to her reign of excess. The revelation of Henyard's gross mismanagement has sparked outrage, and the call for justice grows louder with each passing day. The FBI's investigation, now deepened by Carlisle's testimony, is only beginning to scratch the surface of Henyard's alleged financial crimes, leaving the community to wonder how long the scandal will continue to unfold. Dalton's future now hangs in the balance as the town grapples with the aftermath of Henyard's catastrophic leadership. With trust in local government at an all-time low and the town's financial situation in shambles, the road to recovery will be long and uncertain. As federal authorities close in on Henyard, the residents of Dalton are left hoping that justice will prevail and that their community can one day heal from the damage caused by her actions. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot was hired at a rate of $400 an hour to help clean up the mess left by Tiffany Henyard. However, Lightfoot's intervention proved insufficient to halt Dalton's decline. By the time Henyard's financial mismanagement came under federal scrutiny, the town was already teetering on the brink of collapse. Henyard's reign was not only defined by financial mismanagement. Soon, allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse of power began to surface, further tarnishing her image. Former employees came forward with claims of mistreatment, including lawsuits alleging wrongful termination for refusing to partake in questionable schemes. These revelations painted a disturbing picture of an administration that used its power to intimidate and control those who dared to speak out. The most significant turning point in the scandal came when Henyard's former right-hand woman, Carmen Carlisle, turned whistleblower. Carlisle provided a stack of receipts and testimony that exposed Henyard's financial mismanagement. Her courageous decision to come forward provided crucial evidence to federal investigators, sparking hope among the community that Henyard's days in power were numbered and that justice would finally be served. However, Henyard's refusal to step down despite mounting evidence raised serious questions about the integrity of the legal system. As more accusations surfaced, from embezzlement of public funds to sexual assault, Henyard continued to cling to power, defying public outcry for her resignation. This defiance fueled suspicions that Henyard was trying to use her position to avoid facing the consequences of her actions, revealing that her time in office may have been less about serving the public and more about protecting her interests at any cost. The crisis reached a boiling point when, in a dramatic turn of events, Henyard voluntarily surrendered to the FBI. This move led many to speculate that she might be attempting to strike a deal with federal prosecutors, offering information about her political allies in exchange for leniency even after her surrender. Questions surrounding her motives and actions remained unanswered as the community struggled to comprehend how someone they once admired could fall so far. The once polished image of Henyard, a charismatic leader who had been seen as a powerful figure, unraveled completely, leaving behind a stark reality for the community. The town that had once supported her now had to deal with the aftermath of her corruption and mismanagement. Henyard's extravagant lifestyle, complete with constant security details and lavish spending, had been funded by taxpayer dollars, further alienating the very community she had sworn to serve. The damage done to Dalton's finances, the erosion of public trust, and betrayal of the residents' faith in their leadership will have lasting consequences for years to come. As the investigation into Henyard's actions continues to unfold, federal agents delve deeper into her financial dealings. It became increasingly clear that her actions had far-reaching and destructive consequences, with investigators not only scrutinizing her finances, but also examining her business ventures, campaign funding, and even her charity work. These investigations uncovered layers of corruption that extended well beyond local government alongside financial mismanagement. Henyard's tenure was marred by allegations of sexual impropriety during official visits, including claims of sexual assault against staff members. There were also reports of intimidation tactics aimed at silencing those who dared oppose her. These disturbing revelations painted a picture of an administration steeped in abuse of power, where Henyard used her position to shield herself from accountability. As more former employees came forward with their stories of mistreatment, it became apparent that Henyard's actions had far-reaching consequences that went beyond financial corruption. As the FBI's investigation continued, the residents of Dalton found themselves at a crossroads. Henyard's arrest brought some relief, but it also raised new questions about the future of the town and whether it could recover from the damage done under her leadership. The community's trust in local government had been shattered, and the road to recovery would be long and arduous. One of the most pressing concerns was how to rebuild Dalton's finances, which had been left in disarray. Years of reckless spending, corruption, and mismanagement had drained the town's coffers, and the cost of cleaning up the mess Henyard had left behind was astronomical. The financial devastation caused by Henyard's actions would take years to undo, and residents were left grappling with the uncertainty of how to move forward. Despite these challenges, there was a glimmer of hope. The community's resilience and determination to rebuild were evident, as residents and former employees rallied for justice and accountability. There was a shared understanding that the only way forward was to rebuild Dalton from the ground up. With a focus on transparency, trust, and accountability, the hope was that the lessons learned from Henyard's time in office would lay the foundation for a more ethical, transparent, and effective government in the future. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the town's ability to restore faith in its leaders and emerge stronger from this dark chapter remained uncertain. While Henyard's downfall had brought some measured justice, Dalton still faced an uphill battle to heal the wounds caused by years of mismanagement and corruption. The financial devastation, broken trust, and emotional scars left by Henyard's actions would not disappear overnight. But amidst the uncertainty, the people of Dalton saw a chance to transform their narrative. The community's collective strength and determination to reclaim their town's future would play a pivotal role in charting a new path forward, one that prioritized integrity, justice, and accountability. Although the road ahead would be challenging, the opportunity to rebuild from the ashes of Henyard's mismanagement represented a chance for true change. The town's ability to heal, rebuild, and grow would depend on the commitment of its residents to ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. Henyard's fall from grace serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the devastating consequences of personal greed and misconduct. It is a cautionary tale of how one individual's actions can ripple through an entire community, leaving lasting scars that take years to heal yet. It also represents an opportunity for the people of Dalton to reclaim their future, rebuild their trust in government, and ensure their leaders are held accountable for their actions. The road to recovery may be long, but the journey begins with a single step toward justice and reform.